You have been lied to about Italy. I know, there's no easy way to break it to you, but sadly it's true. Unfortunately, there is a lot of misinformation and outdated facts that bounce around on the internet and in various expat groups that are just simply not true. And in today's video, I'm going to be uncovering some of the most popular lies that I often read about and hear about on the internet and in expat groups so that you can better educate yourself on what life is really like here in Italy. So let's begin with lie number one. A €1 home is your ticket to living in Italy. The amount of articles I read about this €1 home scheme, it honestly makes me laugh because they are always worded in such a romantic way that it's easy to believe that this could be the fairy tale ending to you moving to Italy. But I need to kind of set your expectations straight a bit because first of all, let's talk about the price. A €1 home is never, ever, ever just a €1 home. There are many different terms and conditions and stipulations that are imposed on the purchase of these so-called €1 homes. Usually the comune where the property is within will set a stipulation as to the amount of money that needs to be invested into the property for its maintenance and upkeep. Now this can run into the tens of thousands of euros depending on the property and the commune itself. Not to mention the fact that there are often hidden costs associated with purchasing homes here in Italy, taxes, legal fees, translation services if you don't speak Italian very well, and of course the glaringly obvious thing, these €1 homes are uninhabitable. You cannot just purchase it, pack your suitcase and move in. They are grotty and often shells, if that. So you are going to need to invest a lot of money into building work to be able to bring the home to a living standard, which means you're going to have to invest into building services, unless of course you are skilled enough to be able to do the work on your own, in which case you're going to be investing a whole heap of time and energy. So there is a big investment that you need to make into your €1 home. Now, don't get me wrong, I do think that if you come from a big city like London or New York, for example, where the cost of housing is just ludicrous, it's just ridiculous, the thought of purchasing a €1 home, even with the added extras that you have to invest on top of it, still seems to be a better prospect financially than actually buying a home fit for purpose back in your own country. So I do understand why the temptation is there for people who want to buy this type of home. But there's another thing that you need to really consider. The whole idea behind this scheme is to breathe life back into severely underpopulated towns and villages across Italy. Over the years, these towns and villages have seen people leave in droves to move to bigger cities for career prospects and to raise families, which essentially means that if there are any people living in these places, they tend to be a lot older and there are very few shops and services that you'll find in these locations. They tend to be very rural, very remote, and as such, you've got a few logistical challenges that you'll need to navigate as well if this idea really appeals to you. So there's a lot to consider. Also, as I said before, the commune will stipulate a few terms and conditions as to the use of the property. Because the purpose of the scheme is to bring people back into a town or village, you will often be required to live and be resident in that home for a set period of time throughout the year or for a set number of years. So this kind of negates the use for holiday homes, Airbnbs, all of which don't really breathe life back into a place. They just continue to keep it pretty empty for large chunks of the year. So yes, there are a few restrictions to this kind of scheme. It isn't as straightforward as you may well have imagined. And so you do have to consider this, as well as the fact that if you come from a country where a visa is necessary to live in Italy, please know that being a homeowner here in Italy does not guarantee you the right to be a permanent resident here. It's a very different situation. You need to be able to meet the visa requirements if you plan to live here on a long-term basis, and that is often based on your financial commitments, your abilities to sustain yourself financially, your work commitments, etc., etc. So the fact that you are a homeowner doesn't automatically give you that possibility. It may mean, like I know a lot of people do who have second homes here, that you spend part of the year here and then a part of a year back in your country, because that is all you can physically do without a visa. So there are kind of loopholes and workarounds that you can do, but you have to always be sure that they're going to meet the stipulations that your commune will set on the purchase of this home. Because if they want you to live there for 2 or 3 years, you need to make sure that you have the ability to live and can be accepted for a visa in Italy for that period. So you've got to do your homework with this €1 home scheme. I think on paper it sounds this incredibly romantic thing, and I understand why people get giddy with the prospect of moving to Italy for, you know, less than the cost of a coffee in Italy nowadays, but it never is that. There is a lot of mental work that you have to do and mental stress that you have to endure as well, because as you'll know from many of my videos, the bureaucracy here is difficult, to put it politely. So for this reason, like, you have a lot of things you have to think about. So I don't really think it's as easy a ticket as it is often made out to be. So do your research. If you don't believe me, go check out some videos on YouTube. There are some content creators who have actually documented their process of renovating a €1 home, and they really reveal to you what they had to do it. And as much as the end result might be fantastic, there's been a lot of blood, sweat, tears and money that they've had to invest into the project. So do your research, that's what I'm saying. Okay, line number 2 is that the cost of living is lower in the south of Italy. Now, this is an outdated truth. Back in the day, I would say that this was true. However, even in the 6 years that I have been here, I have slowly started to see that this is becoming more and more of a lie. Now, a lot of it is because if you do a direct comparison between the south of Italy and, say, Milan or the north of Italy, for example, there is a difference in terms of living costs and also in terms of the salaries that people actually earn for their work. Here in South Italy, the salaries tend to be a lot lower, so everything is relative. The cost of living is lower because people don't earn as much money here. But in recent months and years, things have slowly been creeping up in price. Consider when I first moved to Italy back in 2018, I could get a coffee at a bar for 80 cents. Now the typical average is €1 to €1.20. So the cost of things have been increasing rapidly, yet people's income has remained stagnant. So now we're arriving at a point where actually it is becoming a bit expensive for people who even live here in the south of Italy to survive and to get by. Not to mention the fact that there are some typical tourist destinations here in the south of Italy, which mean that if you plan to locate and move to one of those places, things are naturally going to be more expensive there just because of where you are in the world. So you do have to consider very much these particular aspects. And let's not forget about taxes. The tax system here in Italy is wild. And, you know, every year the taxes increase. So it is quite expensive to live in all of Italy, I would say. Yes, if you're going to do a direct comparison to where you come from, maybe you're coming from London, New York, another part of the world where things are super expensive. Initially on the surface, you're going to be like, this is so cheap. But once you're living here and you are accustomed to the everyday life here, you will soon begin to realise that actually some things are pretty expensive by Italy's standards. So yes, this is definitely something I would say is becoming even more outdated as the months roll on and the cost of everything just continues to spiral. Okay, let's talk about line number 3. You'll never find a job in Italy. Oh my goodness, this is like all I keep reading about in expat groups. It's the number one thing that I was told when I first expressed a desire to move to Italy back in 2018, you'll never find a job. I've been working here for 6 years without a break, even during the pandemic. So I'm the first person to tell you that if you want to make something happen, you absolutely can. Now, there are a few caveats here. I don't speak Italian fluently yet. I am getting better, but I'm not at that point where I could accept a job where I would have to speak in Italian. So that means that I'm pretty much boxed into the category of doing an English speaking role, which here in Italy tends to be as an English teacher. It is one of the so-called easier jobs to obtain just because there is a real demand for English teachers here in Italy. But even if it's not something you want to do forever, I really strongly believe it is a fantastic experience. You learn so much about yourself and you learn so much about the culture here, and you gain so much valuable experience of having worked in Italy. So don't turn your nose up at it. A lot of people are like, oh my gosh, another English teacher. Well, you know, you're supporting yourself financially, you're able to live your dream on the back of your job. So don't knock it, but equally it doesn't have to be what you do forever. It's just the perfect opening, the perfect way to begin your experience here in Italy. But there are jobs here, and this is like, oh gosh, it's bandied about so much, the whole employment situation here in Italy. But there are jobs, if you apply yourself and you think outside of the box, you can find something here. But you've got to be prepared to put the work in. And you've got to be prepared to maybe start off doing something you're not so committed to, but then gradually learn to love it a bit more, or change direction as you prefer. Line number 4, you'll live la dolce vita in Italy. I'm going to tell it to you straight, you'll live a normal life in Italy, not a fairy tale. There are many aspects of life here in Italy that are beautiful, that when I think back to my old life in London, I cannot even make a direct comparison. This is true, but there are also many other things that make me think my living standards have gone down the toilet here in South Italy. So I really want to kind of set your expectations. There will be lots of contrasts. You will learn a lot from the experience, but you are not necessarily going to be living this fairy tale, romantic, la dolce vita, day in and day out here. It's not possible. You will have challenges and difficult moments. How many and how frequently, well, it depends on you, your life, the things that you have to do here, but be prepared for those hard knocks, because they will come. It's part and parcel of living in another country. And I think, if you really believe that this is the way of life here, then you're naive to the reality and the struggles of people who live here. Because I live in South Italy and it's hard for many people here. And I see the beauty and I see the abundance and I see all of the amazing magical things that most tourists that come here see. But then I also see the old people who are rummaging through the dustbins trying to find something to wear. I see people who are looking for food on the streets, homelessness. I see a lot of stuff here. So, I have a really balanced perspective, I would suggest. It's not always la dolce vita, it's just normal everyday life. And if you can accept that and be okay with that, then I think you'll be just fine. Okay, my final lie that you've been told is that Italy is one country. It isn't. It's many countries. In fact, it's so many countries, I can't even put a number onto it. It is a multitude of experiences and countries rolled into one. It is probably the most complicated place I think I could ever have imagined to live in. Do your research, because if you plan to move here, your experience in one part of Italy will vary wildly to your experience in another part. Put it this way, if I were living in Bologna, my life would be 100% different to how it is here in Palermo, for many reasons: climate, weather, the amount of money I can earn, public transport infrastructure, etc., etc., etc. So do your research, because Italy is complicated. You don't notice this when you come here on holiday. No, you don't. You see Italy as being everything you ever imagined it to be. But when you actually spend a decent amount of time here and you really get to understand the intricacies and the historical fallouts that this country still clings on to, you understand that it's super complicated. And so it's not one country at all. It's like 1,001 countries rolled into one. And so do your research if you really do plan to live here. So I hope that this video has helped you uncover the facts from the fiction, shall we say, when it comes to life here in Italy. Go ahead and watch this video here next. I think this will also continue your education of this part of the world, and I will see you in the next video.